Welcome, everyone. Today, we're taking a fascinating plunge into the workings of that incredible engine in your head, your brain.
Yeah, it really is amazing when you think about it.
We've got this great source material to explore, a guide called Brain Training, Boost Memory, Maximize. And honestly, it's packed. Everything from, basic brain structure to some really clever techniques for memory and creative thinking.
Yeah.
So, our mission really in this deep dive is to pull out the most useful, maybe even surprising nuggets from this guide.
Give you a real advantage, right, in understanding your own brain potential.
Exactly. And without getting totally bogged down in like dense textbook language, we know you want the core insights quickly and thoroughly.
Right. You
Yeah.
share when things just click. So maybe we should start right at the foundation, get a clearer picture of the brain's basic architecture.
Okay, sounds good. So, under the hood, what are the key components we really need to know about?
Well, the first thing to picture is that your brain is essentially divided, two halves, hemispheres.
Left and right.
Exactly. And the source points out the left side tends to handle the logical thinking, numbers, language, analysis, that sort of thing.
The list maker, the problem solver part.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the right side takes on more of the visual and imaginative work,
Color, spatial awareness, recognizing patterns, big picture thinking.
abstract ideas. Yeah, it's like the artistic, maybe intuitive side.
But it's interesting, they don't work in total isolation, do they? It's not like one's completely shut off from the other.
Oh, absolutely not. They communicate constantly.
Yeah.
There's this central connection, the corpus callosum.
Ah, the information superhighway.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Lets them share data, work together seamlessly. Now, each of these hemispheres, they're further organized into four main regions, lobes.
Okay, the lobes. We've got the occipital lobe, that's at the back, right? Primarily for vision.
Yep, processes what we see. Then you've got the temporal lobes, kind of on the side.
And they handle sound, memory formation, speech, emotions, too.
That's right. Sound, memory, speech, and emotional responses.
Oh,
Now, what's really interesting is nestled within these lobes is this network, the limbic
The
system.
limbic system, okay.
The source highlights a few key parts here. The amygdala, for instance, plays a huge role in emotions, especially the strong ones like fear or excitement.
Makes you wonder how that affects memory, right? Those really strong emotional events.
Definitely. Then there's the hypothalamus. Think of it as a sort of command center.
Linking brain and body.
Exactly. Regulates vital functions like body temperature, blood pressure, things like that.
Okay.
The thalamus acts like a relay station for sensory info. Takes signals from eyes, ears, and sends them up to the cerebral cortex.
Where the heavy-duty processing happens.
Precisely. And of course, the hippocampus. Absolutely fundamental for learning, creating new memories, especially spatial memory.
Like remembering your way around.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Learning a new route, remembering where things are. That's your hippocampus hard at work.
And down at the base.
The cerebellum. The source mentions this is, evolutionarily speaking, an older part of the brain, mainly involved in movement, balance, and those automatic functions we don't think about.
Breathing, digestion.
So even just this basic structure, it's incredibly complex and interconnected, isn't it?
It really is. And having that basic map helps set the stage for, well, more abstract ideas like intelligence itself.
Right. The source gets into that, and it makes it really clear. Intelligence is way more than just grades or knowing facts. It's broader, more dynamic.
Yeah, not just about acing a test. The source emphasizes it involves really understanding the world around you.
Making sense of things, figuring out how to act effectively.
It mentions analyzing, evaluating, imagining, inventing even, and then actually applying those ideas.
And what's fascinating is this idea of different strands of intelligence.
Strands, like what?
Well, the source lists things you might expect, like reasoning, planning, problem solving, abstract thought, language skills.
Standard stuff.
But it goes further. It includes adaptability, forming relationships, generating original ideas. It really makes you think about how narrowly we sometimes define smart.
Totally. And it gives great examples. Like someone amazing at sports has high kinesthetic intelligence, right? The mind-body thing.
Exactly. Or musical geniuses like Bach, or, incredible athletes like Beckham. They show different kinds of intelligence in their fields.
It really challenges that traditional view.
It does. The source also mentions the IQ test, of course. It acknowledges it can measure certain things: verbal, numerical, visual, spatial reasoning.
But it's not the whole story.
Definitely not. Doesn't capture the full spectrum. It's just one snapshot.
Yeah.
So yeah, important not to see an IQ score as the be-all and end-all.
That's a really important point. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about one of the brain's most powerful tools for learning and remembering, vision.
Ah, yes. The power of visuals, as the source calls it.
And that statistic is amazing. By age 6, kids have visually memorized thousands of object names.
It really highlights how fundamental visual learning is,
Hmm.
especially early on. But it stays crucial, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not just recognizing like a chair or a table.
Hmm.
The source points out our ability to interpret abstract visuals.
Tables, graphs, maps, diagrams.
Yeah. That's a uniquely human skill, apparently. It lets us find meaning, organize complex stuff, spot patterns in data. It's a powerful analytical tool.
And to show how our brains work with visuals, the source uses those classic optical illusions.
Oh, yeah. The one that's either a young woman or a saxophonist.
That's the one. Or the maple leaf versus the two men headbutting.
Right. And once you see both, your brain kind of flips between them. It's weird.
It is. And the source suggests that when our first impression gets challenged like that, it actually helps us learn better.
How so?
It forces us to, consider other perspectives, move beyond our first assumption, makes the learning stickier, maybe.
Interesting. Okay, so that leads us nicely into how memory actually works,
Mm-hmm.
and crucially, how we can improve it.
Right. And a key insight here, memory isn't like a filing cabinet where you pull out perfect recordings.
It's not.
No. The source says it's more like an act of reconstruction. Your brain pieces together important details that are stored across different areas.
So it's dynamic, not static.
Exactly. Which means it's also selective and interpretive.
Ah, so two people see the same thing but remember it differently.
Precisely. We focus on what's meaningful to us. Our experiences shape the memory as it's formed and recalled.
Okay. Now, what about the idea that memory just fades as you get older?
Well, here's the encouraging part.
Yeah.
The source pushes back on that. It says that idea isn't entirely accurate.
Really?
Yeah. With regular mental stimulation, your memory can actually improve as you get older.
Yeah.
It's more about keeping the brain active, like a muscle, use it or lose it to some extent.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So if we can boost our memory, how do we actually do it?
The source breaks it down into 3 basic stages. First, make the information memorable to begin with.
Make it stick.
Right. Second, store it in an organized way.
Findable later.
And third, be able to retrieve it accurately when you need it.
Okay, makes sense. So strategies. How do we make things memorable?
Well, one big way is to attach stronger meaning and associations. Link new stuff to your own experiences or emotions.
Makes it personal.
Exactly. If you're learning history, connect it to your family story maybe, create stronger links.
And associating with things you already know well.
Crucial. That and creating vivid mental pictures, like in mind maps. Give your brain a visual hook.
Okay, what else?
Review. Absolutely critical. The source has this stat. Without review, we might only remember like 20% after a day.
Wow, that low.
Yeah. But just reviewing it soon after and then again later, big difference. Helps move it to long-term memory. Reinforces the pathway.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned something about explanation.
Ah, yes. The source flags this as maybe the most effective technique, putting things in your own words.
Why is that so good?
Because you can't explain something well unless you truly understand it. That deep processing makes it much easier to recall. It's active learning.
I see. That makes sense.
And our brains love patterns and order. Remember that example? A random string of numbers. 7, 1, 9, 3, 11, 5. Hard.
Yeah, tricky.
But reorder it. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Suddenly it's easy.
Because there's a pattern, our brain locks onto it.
Exactly. Engaging multiple senses also helps. Sight, sound, smell. The more senses involved, the richer the memory trace. More pathways to the info.
Like learning cooking by actually doing it, smelling it, tasting it.
Perfect example. And of course, mnemonics. We've all used them.
Rhymes, sentences, weird images, homes for the Great Lakes.
Or RYGBIV for the rainbow. Classic stuff. They work.
So getting things into long-term memory needs repetition, right? Rehearsal.
Rehearsal, yes. But also those meaningful associations we talked about.
Yeah.
You need multiple links, multiple connections to retrieve it effectively later.
Like building lots of roads to the same place.
Good analogy. And the source mentions remembering big birthdays, 18th, 21st.
Oh, yeah, you remember those.
Because they're emotionally charged, personally significant. Those feelings anchor the memory.
Okay, so those are great general strategies. What about specific named memory techniques?
Right. The source highlights a couple of really interesting ones. First, the journey method, also called the method of loci.
That's the ancient Greek one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Apparently, orators used it for long speeches.
Yeah.
You visualize a familiar route, your house, your walk to work,
Uh-huh.
and you mentally place the items you want to remember at specific landmarks along that route.
Okay.
But the key, the source stresses, is making the mental images vivid, unusual, even bizarre.
The weirder, the better.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The more it stands out in your mind, the easier it is to recall. The source gives an example. Front door, park bench, pond, linking items to each spot.
I can see how that would work. What else?
It also mentioned pegging, slightly different approach.
Egging.
Instead of a journey, you use a pre-memorized list of pegs, often rhyming words or images, like 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, and you mentally hang the information you need to remember onto these pegs. Good for lists in order, maybe less dependent than the journey method.
Ah, so each item is independent.
Sort of, yeah. Examples given are things like linking a bicycle pump to 1 bun, a printer to 2 shoe, etc.
And just general association, too.
Absolutely. Just finding any link between new info and something familiar, like remembering Nina by thinking of an ambulance sound, or a surname like Door by thinking of the band.
Finding those personal mental hooks.
That's the essence of it. It's amazing how these old techniques still hold up, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, moving on. The source also touches on some more modern, maybe debated topics, like the Mozart effect.
Ah, yes. The idea that listening to Mozart makes you smarter, basically, or boosts spatial reasoning, at least temporarily.
That was huge in the 90s, wasn't it?
It was. The theory was the complex patterns in the music might stimulate brain pathways related to intelligence.
But does it actually work?
Well, the source is pretty clear here. Follow-up studies mostly failed to replicate the original findings.
So probably not.
The consensus now seems to be listening to music you enjoy can improve mood, maybe focus, but specifically Mozart giving a lasting cognitive boost. The evidence isn't really there. Seems like it got hyped up by the media.
Okay, good to know. What about something really modern? Video games. Any brain benefits there?
Surprisingly, yes. The source highlights some potential pluses.
Like what?
Well, research suggests gaming can be good for developing visual awareness and even improve a surgeon's dexterity.
Seriously? Surgeons?
Yeah, probably the hand-eye coordination and spatial skills needed in many games. Some studies also show improvements in short-term memory.
Because you have to track a lot of things at once.
Likely, yes.
Yeah,
It makes you reconsider some of the usual criticisms, doesn't it?
it does. Any other potential benefits?
Well, there's mention that visually demanding games might even activate genes involved in developing neural pathways for spatial attention, and maybe even improve attention spans, not harm them, by forcing you to distribute focus.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift again. Critical topic. Creative thinking. How does the source define that?
It talks about it as a mix: original thinking, insight, ingenuity, innovation. Basically, generating new and valuable ideas.
And it tackles that myth about creativity being just a right brain thing.
It does.
Yeah.
Emphasizes that creativity really blossoms when both hemispheres work together. You need the imagination, sure, but also the analysis and organization.
Imagination and logic.
Exactly. It mentions Wallace's model, suggesting creativity is a process, stages, not just a magical flash.
And focus is important too.
Vital. The example given is getting lost in a novel. Your mind generates unique images while following the story. That deep focus lets imagination fly.
So how do we stimulate creativity? Any tips?
Several. Music is suggested again, but more personally. Like, try different genres, see what works for you. Classical for logic, rock for energy. Experiment.
Okay, personal preference matters.
Another exercise.
Yeah.
Stepping into someone else's shoes. Look at a photo of someone. Really try to imagine their perspective. What are they seeing, feeling, thinking?
Sparks imaginative pathways.
Also, free association with a random word. Stargazing and making your own constellations. Trying to finish similes in non-cliche ways.
All about breaking routine thinking patterns.
Precisely. Which leads nicely into, like, lateral thinking.
Thinking sideways.
Kind of. Approaching problems unconventionally. Not just linear logic, looking from weird angles.
And that De Bono quote about digging the same hole deeper.
Yeah. You cannot dig a hole in a different place by digging the same hole deeper. Sometimes you need a whole new hole, a different approach entirely.
So how do you do lateral thinking?
3 main steps outlined. First, spot the dominant ideas or assumptions holding you back.
The mental roadblock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, attack the problem from different angles, however random they seem. Third, suspend judgment. Don't shoot down weird ideas too quickly.
Let yourself go crazy a bit.
Yeah, the source encourages that. Trivial or ridiculous ideas can be stepping stones. Challenge assumptions, reshape concepts, hold off criticism.
It mentions matchstick puzzles too.
As a classic lateral thinking exercise, yeah. And then there's that great story. the student and the barometer.
Oh, I love that one. The physics problem about building height.
That's it. Instead of the standard formula, the student comes up with all these other ways.
Using it as a pendulum, measuring shadows, trading it to the superintendent.
Exactly. Perfect illustration of thinking outside the box, generating multiple creative solutions.
It's brilliant. And the source lists more of those creative conundrums.
Yeah, a bunch of short riddles and scenarios.
Yeah.
The elder twin mystery, the swimmer in the forest, the band crossing the bridge, doubling the window size.
Brain teasers.
They're great for getting you to think differently, logically and creatively, to find explanations.
Definitely good exercises. Okay, we absolutely have to cover physical activity and rest. Can't talk brain function without it.
So true. The source kicks off with that old Roman saying, mens sana in corpore sano.
A healthy mind in a healthy body.
It's fundamental. Even short bursts of activity increase blood flow to the brain, improves alertness right away.
And long term.
Huge benefits for memory, concentration, especially as we age. It's like preventative maintenance for your brain.
How does exercise actually help the brain fight decline?
Several ways. It stimulates BDNF, that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, helps brain cells grow and survive,
Okay.
increases serotonin, good for mood, new brain cell growth, promotes new blood vessels in the brain, can even boost neural stem cells. It's quite amazing.
Wow. So even simple things help.
Definitely. The source suggests quick physical recharges, brisk walk, take the stairs. It also introduces progressive muscle relaxation, PMR,
What's that?
a stress reduction technique. You tense, then release, different muscle groups. Helps you consciously relax.
Sounds useful. What about things like meditation?
Zen meditation gets a mention, focusing the mind, promoting calm. Potential benefits for depression, sleep.
And other practices?
Briefly touches on Tai Chi, combines gentle movement and mental focus. And yoga breathing, postures, meditation, both aim for calm, focus, balance.
Okay. And then sleep. Hugely important.
Absolutely critical. The source explains sleep is when growth hormones are released, memories get consolidated.
Move from short-term to long-term storage.
Basically, yes. And it regulates our internal body clock, the circadian rhythm. There are tips for good sleep hygiene, too.
Essential stuff. Any final sleep tips?
Daytime naps, even a short one, like 20 minutes, can give a mini brain boost.
Yeah.
Improves memory, problem solving.
A power nap. I like it. Oh, and chocolate.
Yes, a little bonus. Dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Has magnesium, polyphenols, that gets a nod as potentially brain-friendly.
Good news for some of us.
Indeed. So as we wrap up this deep dive, looking back at brain training, boost memory, maximize, the big takeaway.
Your brain isn't fixed. It's adaptable, resilient.
Like a muscle, yeah. You can strengthen it, optimize it with the right exercises, techniques, lifestyle choices.
And intelligence isn't just one thing. It's multifaceted. We should recognize our strengths, but also work on areas we want to improve.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Pick just one or two things we talked about. A memory technique, a creativity exercise.
Or even just thinking about adding a bit more activity or prioritizing sleep. How could that impact your cognitive abilities?
Exactly. This source offers so much to explore. Maybe dive deeper into what resonated most. See what you discover about your own amazing brain potential.